Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Let's get after it.
There's a lot of old accounts of conquistadors in early America. They all encountered some sort of giant. The conquistador Hernando de Soto, he led this expedition with 600 Spanish soldiers. Alabama is where they landed.
Okay.
And they're sitting in this village one day, and they hear this rustling from the woods, and out comes this, they said, this giant Native American man. And the quote was, "Seeing him, we paused, dumb with amazement, a great limbed giant, the heads of our tallest men reached only his breast." And this Native American, his name was Black Panther, Wakanda.
Forever?
But he was a son of Chief Tuscaloosa. He told the Spanish, "My father would like to meet you." They're like, "Yeah, sure." And then they came across this village. They go in, and in the middle of this is this giant mound. And on this mound is sitting Chief Tuscaloosa. They said when he stood up, he was 2 feet taller than his son. They're like, "We've never seen a man
Massive.
with his stature."
That's just another good example of a historically written depiction of giants. At this point, we've heard so much about giants, man, they almost have to have been real.
Am I the only one that can remember just 1 month ago? How fast do we forget things? 1 month ago at the Game Awards, they showed a portal, a literal hologram in the sky, and demons coming out of that portal. I want you guys to hear what the demon says at the end, but what are the chances? Coincidence? I don't know. This is all alleged. This is all speculation. But yeah, last month they showed these giant holograms and these giant demons coming out of them, and then all of a sudden we had that incident in Miami. I think it's weird. It's weird for many reasons. Many people are going against it, saying that, it was this or that. But, for those kind of incidents, fighting, brawling, fireworks, and where I live, they would send 10 cars. At most. If you, it's been worse, they'd send 10 cars. But in Miami, they sent, 150 police cruisers. And this is all alleged. There were people saying that there was phone checking going on as they were leaving. But this is what they showed a month before that happened.
Look at you mortals. Come find me.
Just to push back a little bit against this guy, the reason they sent so many cars, apparently, if you believe their story, is because they thought there was an active shooter situation. So, of course, everyone's going to respond. All available officers are going to respond to that, or at least I would assume that they would. However, it is very interesting to see this hologram thing that they had outside in the open. Almost makes you wonder, what are they going to do with that hologram next?
Over active war zones right now, there is such an increased frequency of what they call UAP or UFO that they have these rules whether or not they fire upon them. And people got so mad at me for saying publicly on the news that we do fire at UAP. But why we do is not what people think. So when you have an active war zone, specifically the area of the world that I'm talking about in the Middle East, anything within 27 to 30 miles of ground troops gets fired upon. That's it. But I was exposed to documents that tell me a little bit more precisely how you choose what to fire upon. And what you fire upon is anything that appears that it could have a payload.
Really?
Yeah, because it would be a threat. What do they do with the cubes surrounded by these spheres? Nothing, because they don't look like they have a payload. So they disregard, they're not part of the mission. So my point in saying that kind of on the news, I don't need to prove to anybody it's true. It is true. I speak with people that are there right now. It is true. And there's been such an increased frequency since 2021 that it has been pushed up to kind of critical, where they're like, okay, these things are in our airspace. We could have collisions. But more importantly, we see other countries firing on these. Russia, Syria. We know it's not their assets. So the question is, whose are these?
So when you say firing at these,
Hellfire missiles.
right? So you have this thing, and what shape are these ones that have payloads?
I have images of one that we fired on. Looks like a fucking jellyfish, man.
Like a jellyfish.
Yeah, I don't know, it's stiff, but that, about the size of a big coffee table. That's the one at least that we've fired on recently.
Big coffee, like this desk, maybe?
Yeah, about
Okay.
10 to 12 feet.
And then It looks
domed, and then it has and they're not all like this, but this is the one we're talking about that I know was recently fired upon. There's no retrieval program that's known in these war zones. So even if they did hit something, first of all, would they be able to take it down, whatever it is? And by the way, we're eliminating that these are balloons, drug smugglers who use balloons and shit like that. These are objects that have controlled flight. So World War II, you had these, both sides of the war, all sides seeing these metallic spheres outpacing their planes. And they're like, oh, fuck, they're up to something. They got some cool technology. Problem is we find out both sides think it's, the other sides. This has been happening for so long. I have an article, we can pull this up. I got an article from 1960, talks about a cube with a sphere around it. A fighter pilot, military fighter pilot, for 4 days, they were getting these. It was in the Alamogordo newspaper.
And so were both sides reporting the same,
Yes.
sort of formations and the same speed?
We thought it was their technology.
Right.
They thought it was ours. What's happening right now in the Middle East with the
Same thing?
Yeah, because we're seeing Russians and Syrians fire on these, and we're sometimes firing on them. But whose are they?
When you say we're seeing, so is this
We're seeing
reports from soldiers that you're getting?
Yeah.
Where are you getting this information?
Okay, so people that work in collecting this data are a little bit frustrated, and I think they're frustrated. They don't have a way to put it up through the chain of command. That it gets lost in translation.
Or they just suppress it.
They don't even spend. I don't even think it's nefarious. They just don't spend the gas to go look at something that doesn't. It's not part of the mission.
Right.
There's no proactive UFO discovery process. It's all kind of reactive.
Well, that's kind of disappointing to hear, but I don't believe it. If it's true, it's disappointing, but they're actively trying to figure out what these things are, and they've got some secret group that's trying to, we know they're backwards engineering them, the ones that they catch, which would be a reactive situation, but they've got people looking at this. If they didn't, we wouldn't have all this, the David Grush stuff and all that. Hey, if you're enjoying this video, I make a new one just like it every single day. It would be awesome if you'd hit that subscribe button and come back tomorrow to join me.
Whoa! TikTok, y'all seen this? Hold on, let me pitch myself down to a little guy. Disney in the news, and they're saying that a 4-year-old girl came up missing. But wait till you hear how she came up missing according to the parents. Now, this article right here says a 4-year-old girl went missing at Disneyland in Los Angeles, as reported in a TikTok video, raising concerns and sparking a digital frenzy about the mysterious incident. Let me tell you. Now, we don't have a picture of the family or the kid. This happened to a Latino family, so the whole situation was told in their language. But through all the interpreters on TikTok, this is what they're saying happened. So this family, who was a Latino descent, said they went to this bathroom and saw a trap door similar to this open up, and that their daughter was down in there. They said the door closed, and they went to run and report it to security guards. They thought they was crazy. They said that they need to dig up this place in the bathroom, and they try to get these people to open this floor up so they can find their daughter. The daughter is still missing. Now these people have to go see psychiatrists because they're sticking to their story that their baby went into a hole in the floor similar to this at Disneyland in Los Angeles. And it's all over TikTok right now. Excuse me. It's all over TikTok right now, and y'all need to go check it out for yourselves, because this looks extremely convincing, and you see this is a real thing. The floor is opened up and trap doors to now look at that. That looks perfect in line and don't even look like a trap door.
That's one of the single most terrifying videos that I've seen yet. Man, this needs to be investigated. They need to get somebody in there to look into this. I hope that this is some wild story that was taken out of context and that it's not true. But, Disney cruise ships are going to Epstein Island for years. Something like this wouldn't surprise me at all.
Once you're done watching this video, you will question everything you thought you knew about aliens, UFOs, and the extraterrestrial phenomenon. First off, they're not from outer space, and I can basically prove that to you. Hear me out. Right now, the United States Congress is having a bit of a go at all of us. They have a lot more information, and they aren't talking. But I'm going to explain to you everything you need to know about the UFO and alien phenomenon so that you can understand that everything they're saying is a lie. First off, crop circles weren't always crop circles. Before the modern age, they were called fairy circles. They had the same characteristics of perfect circles and a bunch of brush that seemed to be pressed down by some magical means. But the only difference is, instead of people ever seeing gray aliens and flying saucers, they saw fairies dancing in the middle of the circle. Speaking of fairies, instead of people being visited by 4-foot-tall gray aliens with big black eyes, they were met by fairies, little people that looked a lot like human beings but also had big eyes, except back then they had the pupil and the retina and the whites in their eyes. There's lots of scientists that will say things like, well, why does this always happen in the Western world? It doesn't always happen in the Western world. They just go by different ideas and names and syntax and explanations for it. In the Middle Eastern world, they're called Djinn and Jinn. In ancient Greece, they were called the Archons. You might have heard of the fallen angels in the Bible. And it keeps getting weirder, because in modern times, there are several accounts of people who stumble across these 4-foot-tall aliens, and they begin getting a message projected into their head. Something like, owl, 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 you'll remember me as an owl. And all of a sudden, they start seeing an owl. And when they tell the story afterwards, they tell it as a 4-foot-tall owl. But when they go through hypnotherapy and the hypnotherapist asks them to describe the owl, they start describing a gray alien. What does this tell us? That whatever it is, it can make us see whatever it wants us to see. It gets even weirder, and this is where it disproves the extraterrestrial theory. During the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, people were coming across these things, and all of these beings had completely different stories that were absolutely incredible. Sometimes they were from Mars, and they were collecting plant samples so they could regrow them on their planet. Sometimes it's the Pleiades, or Zeta Reticuli. But this is where it gets interesting once again. Before the modern times, before we started dreaming of exoplanets and extraterrestrial beings, we thought of ideas like palaces in the sky, and how heaven existed way above us somewhere that we couldn't see. Well, guess what was happening back then when that was the predominant belief of people around the world? Well, people would see giant wooden ships that should be in the water, that were floating in the sky, and people that could swim down in the air from the boats and talk to you. The only thing consistent across all the stories throughout time, hundreds and even thousands of years of different accounts, is balls of light. Strange balls of light that do strange things. In a more recent account that gives more evidence to this theory, there were 3 individuals in a household. One individual was sleeping by themselves in a bedroom and had an experience where they saw that the ceiling disappeared and they were looking at a spacecraft, and at the top of the spacecraft there was a window with little gray aliens inside. The 2 other people heard noise and they went into the room, and when they looked, all they saw was a small bluish gray ball of light. So what are we dealing with? Because before we were told that they were extraterrestrials from Mars or Zeta Reticuli, we were told they lived in palaces and mountains and castles in the sky, and they traveled by these majestic flying boats. They changed their story based on what we believe in or what our culture is emerging into. When we got to the modern age and industrialization and aircraft and thinking about space, all of a sudden they started showing up as extraterrestrial aliens and spacecraft. Before that, when we imagined things like kingdoms and castles in the sky, and we first started to imagine what flight would be like, we saw boats and blimps. So what are they, and what are they doing here? What Jacques Vallée believes is, whatever it is, it's meant to have a psychological effect, to change the way we act, think, and create in our society. But I think I've given you enough information to at least reconsider the narrative they're trying to feed you.
I don't know how much weight I would give to everything that he said there, but it does make a lot more sense that the reason that you hear about these things in the West is just because that's the terminology that we use over here. And so a lot of these things that are being reported on in other countries, there's just a cultural barrier there that keeps us from picking up on some of these other stories.
Once in a while, we come across an ancient artifact that's so insanely old that it just does not fit into any of our timelines. That would be an out-of-place artifact, or OOPArt, and we ain't talking about the blatantly fake ones over here. As I'm sure you've seen the Babylon Nokia, this Nokia-looking cell phone with ancient Sumerian digits on it, which I'm pretty sure is just a prank. These old iron pipes found in China hold more validity to them, known as the Baigong pipes. Found near the Chinese Mount Baigong, which appears to host a pyramid-shaped mound with a saltwater lake inside. And beneath the surface of this area, several hollowed out, rusted iron pipes running into the mountain were uncovered, ranging from 18 inches in diameter to as thin as a noodle. What makes these special is that researchers have found the pipes to be over 150,000 years old after performing dating analyses on them, made during a time that our primate ancestors were supposed to be roaming the earth, far before any civilization began to form. This right here is an out-of-place artifact, and we've got a whole bunch of them that make even less and less sense as we go on. Humans didn't start working with metal until about 10,000 BC at the earliest, let alone developing a sophisticated underground water transport system like we see here. No one really knows where or how these pipes came to be, and they're found all around the area. Believe it or not, this is actually the newest Upart on our list, so shit just keeps on getting older from here. Just like up in the Ural Mountains in Russia, archaeologists found finely crafted microscopic metal parts 10 meters beneath the surface. They were embedded in rock that was calculated to be about 300,000 years old, making these bits around the same age. But the shapes are far too intricate to be naturally forming, and they even tried pinning them on stray missile parts that fell from the sky. But they were much too deep in the rock to have been recently fallen, and they had no other way of getting there. These pieces of alleged ancient nanotechnology were also less than a millimeter long and made of tungsten, a material commonly used in spacecraft. Also found deep underneath the ground in Rockwall County, Texas, lies a wall made of rock. Known as the Great Wall of Texas, it was uncovered in a layer of earth dated to 400,000 years old, way before our primate ancestors were able to build such formations or even step foot in America. Some geologists absolutely insist it's a naturally occurring formation known as clastic sand dikes, but I mean, just look at them. Measuring up to 40 feet in height at some points, you can literally see the shape of the bricks and the mortar holding them together in this wall. This is how real clastic sand dikes look like. Pretty natural, right? And this is the Great Wall of Texas. You be the judge, but clearly there's quite a bit of controversy around this one. Similar to the Koso artifact, what appears to be a spark plug or an electrical device of some sort, encased in a geode that would have taken 500,000 years to form, and the only way an object can be stuck inside of one like this is if the geode formed around it, meaning this ancient spark plug would have to be around the same age. X-rays performed of the artifact revealed a metal cylinder inside with a screw-like ending, indicating it may have operated as a spark plug. Needless to say, our primitive ancestors were nowhere near developing such technology 500,000 years ago, and many pointed it to being a hoax. But the further back in time we go, the harder these become to explain. Case in point, this is the Nampa figurine, found in Idaho in 1889, 300 feet beneath the surface. A layer of clay it was found in was confirmed by the U.S. Geological Survey to be over 2 million years old. Esteemed geologist George Frederick even went to investigate the area and confirmed that the red iron oxidation on the clay figurine matched exactly with the 2 million year old clay layer in a way that couldn't have been faked, making this a 2 million year old clay figurine, way before any even remotely modern humans were thought to live on Earth. So was this even made by humans? There's a fossilized human finger that might point us in the right direction. So a bit of background. The oldest recorded human ancestor fossil we've ever found is about 3.2 million years old, belonging to Lucy, one of our primate ancestors. But now, this fossilized finger right here was found in a Cretaceous limestone formation in Texas. Cretaceous meaning it's over 100 million years old. 100 million years. We're talking the age of dinosaurs right here, far before any proto-human primates were even close to roaming the earth. This was our closest ancestor during that period, so whose finger's that? Which gets even crazier with the Kaluga screw found in a meteor crash site in Russia. That's a metal screw embedded into an asteroid rock. And studies show that the iron and silicon of the screw and rock have physically fused into one another, meaning the screw could not have been a new addition to the rock, which was dated, get ready for this, 300 million years old. Other scientists tried saying this is actually an ancient sea creature called a crinoid, despite it being made of metal, similar to this refined aluminum machine part found encased in coal in another Russian mine, accurately dated to 300 million years old as well, hinting at scattered remains of some advanced civilization that existed long ago. Which brings us to the infamous London hammer, discovered in London, Texas in the 1930s. An iron hammerhead with a wooden handle encased in rock. Which, let me remind you, rocks don't just form around man-made objects out of the blue. Objects embedded into rock or coal this deep are typically preserved as the rock forms around them over the course of millions of years, as is the case with fossils. Which in this case was found in a layer of rock over 400 million years old, the alleged age of the rock and hence of the hammer as well. As with many of these, a lot of speculation around this one, but still interesting to think about a human tool over 400 million years old. The wooden handle is also said to have been partially turned into coal, a process that takes millions of years, which is nothing compared to the Klerksdorp spheres. Round, smooth objects with fine grooves around them found in South African mines. Many claim these are naturally forming mineral deposits, but still others that shapes and patterns like these are just not possible in nature. Made from a metallic outer material and a fibrous interior, 200 of these spheres were found in a mineral deposit over 2.8 billion years old. Back when Earth was still a baby, and apart from a few plants, life barely even existed yet. But then again, we claim life didn't exist back then because we haven't been able to find any evidence of it. Could this be it?
All right, I really enjoyed that video because on ancient advanced civilization argument, you get a lot of pushback on that because you hear people say, if we really had advanced technology back then we would see evidence of it. We would find pieces of that technology. And apparently we are. It's just being overlooked intentionally because it doesn't fit the narrative.
Just on the interdimensionality question, what do you know about the interdimensionality piece that David Grush was asked about, these beings traveling interdimensionally? What, in your experience, can you speak to?
First of all, let me state that a number of the questions that were being asked were ones that I had been requested to write for some of the members.
They seemed pretty sophisticated, I will admit.
Yeah.
I mean, when they're reading them off of those cards.
And I'm not going to say which ones, but
right.
We've been providing on background this sort of information, and I specifically yesterday had a call with one of the members and helped them develop those specific questions. But to answer your question about interdimensionality, let me use this analogy. If you are going to go from one star system to another, you cannot go even at the speed of light in a straight line. Okay, it would take too long. It's like if you're from a star system that's 50,000 light years away, which is just in our own galaxy, it would take 50,000 years at the speed of light. Moreover, if you know Einstein's formulas, if you are just accelerating up to the speed of light, when you hit the speed of light, you take on infinite mass. So it's not possible. So the only way to go from point A to B in the cosmos is, it's like a piece of paper that you fold space-time. Now, when you fold space-time, you're actually traversing other dimensions. It gets complicated, and you are actually all the physics that we deal with in the 3D universe are not operative in the other dimensional aspects of the cosmos. And so it's a bit of a misnomer to say these beings and craft are interdimensional but not extraterrestrial. A priori, if you're extraterrestrial and you're going from one star system to another, you have to be interdimensional. Okay, is this clear? I mean, I know it sounds a little confusing, but it's like saying, well, is an orange, or is it round, or is it a fruit? Well, it's an orange, fruit.
The only way you could travel like this is interdimensionally. Is the answer
correct?
Right.
Yes.
And
I use the term transdimensional because you're transiting through dimensions. Now, to make this a little more confused, there are beings that are not extraterrestrial that are from other dimensions, but not extraterrestrial from another physical planet. So this gets into a whole understanding of a cosmology, let's say, that needs to be greatly updated from the good old days of Carl Sagan and your Harvard astrophysicists. Right. But at any rate, it is correct to say that these are extraterrestrial and transdimensional or interdimensional, because there's no way to go from point A to B without going transiting through other dimensions. Because once you go beyond the speed of light and you're dropping out of linear space-time to appear at one point to another, for the time that you are, well, time is not a correct term, for the episode, let's call it, of going from point A to B, you are interdimensional. You're transitioning through dimensions. So that's why I think, again, there needs to be a little more background briefing for the congressmen. I know they're very busy with other things, and some of this gets to be a bit obtuse or abstract or what have you, but the public needs to understand this, because these terms get thrown around without proper definition or, in my opinion, scientific reference.
That's pretty interesting to think that you have to become transdimensional in order to get from one faraway star to another. And that makes me think, if this is all true, if there are beings here that are not extraterrestrial, they're just from another dimension, does that mean that we're going to someday develop the technology or steal it from them and be able to enter these other dimensions?
Say, for the first time, the corpse of a deer infected with a zombie virus was caught. The so-called zombie disease has spread to more than 31 U.S. states. So, zombie deer are not a product of fiction or fantasy. They are a product of human evolution. and potentially this virus could pose a threat to humans. So, what's happening? What is this virus, and should we be panicking? It all stems from chronic wasting disease, CWD, affecting deer, elk, and other members of the deer family. CWD is caused by a type of protein called a prion, which can misfold and accumulate in the brain and nervous system of animals, causing irreversible damage and death. CWD was first identified in the 1960s in Colorado, and since then, it has been found in 30 states in the USA, 4 provinces in Canada, as well as in Norway, Finland, Sweden, and South Korea. Moreover, CWD is highly contagious and can be transmitted through direct contact, biological fluids, feces, and
the only good thing about that is it hasn't jumped to humans yet, but they expect that it will, and that's terrifying. Chronic wasting disease is nothing to scoff at. It's made me slow down on my deer hunting, because you almost don't. What if it's got it and it just hasn't started to show signs yet, and then you eat it? That's what it takes, is eating one of those prions, and then all of a sudden it decides it's going to infect a human, and then we're all screwed.
Okay, I might be reaching, but what's going on here on Etsy? Why are these children's paintings so high? And why is there multiple of them, including one labeled pizza oil painting? Not to mention AI-generated pictures of kids eating wings and pizza, going for around 3 to 4K, and even pictures of pizza for 3K. And there's this one labeled coming soon for 51K, and the person's name is Earth's Dark Author. I'm not saying anything is going on here, but let me know what y'all think is going on here.
This needs to be investigated. If you know what all the code words are that they use to describe what they're interested in, and by they, I mean Epstein-like individuals, yeah, that's highly, highly suspicious.
Do y'all remember that Balenciaga model that went missing? And then this mannequin ended up showing up in a Balenciaga store that looked exactly like him? So I'm doing a little bit of scrolling, and I see this video.
Yo, look at this dude in the airport. The dude is in like a glass box, sleeping. Fell asleep. And it totally broke me for a little while. And I came up on it. I was like, no way, why do they have this cool box? Is it one at a time and it's like soundproof and you can go in and take a nap? It's a sculpture. The Traveler, Dwayne Hansen, 1925 to 1996. Bronze, polychromed in oil, mixed media with accessories, 1985, Florida artist. What in the world? That's 71 years, by the way. So, is that like a real dude? And he was a traveler? I love the accuracy of everything here. Like, that's really good. Kind of some like dark circles a little bit, the old luggage tags.
Come on. I mean, honestly, come on. Like, I paused it in multiple places, zoomed into that guy's face, like, that does not look or feel like any kind of prosthetics to me, or that feels in my soul, that dude feels real. And when you understand the way this world really works, and what the powers that be are actually capable of, and the things that they've already done in this life, it changes the way you see things. Changes the possibilities. All I know is I got a lot of questions. Like, I would love to know who that guy is. Like, I'm not talking about the artist, I'm talking about the person that you're looking at in that video. What do you all think?
If this guy is trying to say that Balenciaga is offing their models and turning them into wax figures, I think he needs a lot more evidence before anyone's going to take that claim serious. Sometimes you're just looking at a sculpture by someone with a lot of talent.
So I was holding conversations with Podesta to get to Obama, and I had 2 multi-star generals from Space Command and the head of Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, that Skunk Works built Area 51, their elite engineering division. I had them all on this like fucking emails, and we're setting up these conference calls and stuff. Well, Hillary Clinton's campaign got hacked by the Russians, WikiLeaks, and it outed all this shit about Podesta and her. And what happened with that was when all these news journalists were pouring through WikiLeaks to see what spilled from Hillary's campaign. They found these fucking emails with me and Podesta talking to these generals about UFOs. So Wall Street Journal threw that onto the Wall Street Journal. And then I was like, fuck, I'm fucked. What happened though is it gave me all this credibility, because then all of a sudden all these other people in the government knew that I was like hanging around with some big boys. And then that's when my company was not just me, it became something bigger. And so the company came out to the public, founded by myself, one of the heads of the CIA, and the head physicist for the UFO program. And then I hired the program director, the guy that ran the UFO program. And the first thing we did was take those videos to the New York Times and out the program. And then we went and spent 2 years briefing all the committees in the Senate and Congress and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. So now you're seeing hearings. The DOD admitted UFOs were real. The Navy admitted, that's all us. The hearings at Congress and the UAP task force, that's all that. We started all of that. And it all started with me just being a little punk rock kid, just going, I'm going to fucking do this. Not really knowing what I was playing with, you know?
How honest he's being right there. I have no reason to believe that he's not being. But if all that's true, that's really fascinating. I had no idea that Tom DeLonge played such an integral role in helping all this stuff come to the forefront of the conversation.
Everyone is debating if the NFL is scripted because nobody really tried to tackle Cowboys corner Deron Bland on his record-breaking pick 6 that just randomly happened on Thanksgiving when the most amount of people would be watching the game. But if we're gonna have a serious conversation, then there's only one story that everyone needs to know about, because literally hours after the NFL lawyer Dan Goods called out the NFL for being scripted before the Super Bowl back in Minnesota, he was randomly shot dead in a gang-style execution. Goods worked for the NFL headquarters in New York and was in charge of many of their lawsuits, including one back in 2004 where the NFL said that they are not a collection of 32 teams but a single entity and compete as a unit in the entertainment marketplace, so they are not subject to antitrust laws. The only other sport that occupies this legal position is the WWE, and Goods said in the interview right before he died that he had to speak out because of how guilty he felt that it was legal to script games thanks to entertainment lawyers like him, and that outcomes have been fixed to maximize profits ever since he started working for them, because the refs manipulate the wins for the overall benefit of the NFL, and the teams and players don't care, because more profits means they get more money since all the NFL's revenue is split among its 32 teams. This is why zero players or coaches call out the refs, despite the fact that they constantly make outrageous calls which change the outcome of games. So all I gotta say is, NFL, please do not shoot me for making this TikTok.
So they compete as a unit in the entertainment marketplace. Man, that sounds like an admission to me. I don't know. I don't really care about football. I don't watch it. But yeah, that sounds like an admission of guilt. And now we have an update from the cornucopia girl.
I got to the bottom of the Fruit of the Loom cornucopia Mandela effect, and I'm upset. Claire really pulled through for us and went through all of her old clothes until she found an official logo. Not only is this an official Fruit of the Loom shirt, except the cornucopia looks exactly how we've all described it and remembered it. This reignited my fixation, and after digging through the internet, I found this old newspaper that specifically says Fruit of the Loom logo was initially a cornucopia. And Fruit of the Loom has been questioned about the cornucopia. They've straight up been lying to us, saying that it never existed. Please note that this Fruit of the Loom image that was created from people's memories matches exactly what's on Claire's shirt. Not only are they lying to us, they're intentionally causing chaos. If you go to their homepage, they have a whole timeline of their logos, and what company has that? That's not evidence enough that they're intentionally trying to cause chaos. These are what their TikToks look like.
I don't know.
I'm convinced this is 100% corporate gaslighting. Mixed feelings about this, because honestly it is one of the greatest marketing ploys in all of history, but at what cost? It has caused me so much distress that both my husband and my therapist forbade me from pursuing it any further. Glad I pursued my heart and got to the bottom of this, but tell me what you think. Should we just admire their marketing, or should we open a class action lawsuit to be reimbursed for emotional damage?
I definitely don't think a lawsuit is in order. If you're getting emotional damage from this, then you should probably absolutely be going to therapy, so good on you for that. Unfortunately, it looks like that's the end of Cornucopia Girl, but in my eyes, she proved it. They had the cornucopia at one point. They're lying to us.
The Mandela effect may be darker than you think. The Mandela effect is essentially a type of false memory that occurs when many different people incorrectly remember the same thing. But this woman on TikTok may have changed our whole perspective on it. She came on the platform discussing the Fruit of the Loom logo and said that the logo used to have cornucopia in it, and the company responded saying that it's never had one as a part of their logo. The woman lost her mind and even spoke to her therapist about it. She was so certain about it that she just couldn't let it go. She went through her whole closet and even the closet of her friends and family until she finally found a t-shirt that confirmed her suspicions. She found a shirt with the logo she was describing and even went as far as finding the old logo in the company's trademark history. So why are they gaslighting us like this? Well, the theory goes that there is a giant experiment to see how easy it is for whoever is in charge to erase history. They do this to us to see how many people will stand on business and refuse to accept these changes. They will start small and work their way up. What do you think? Could this theory have some truth to it?
I like that theory. I think that theory makes a lot more sense than CERN accidentally popped us into a new dimension. I mean, we know the government lies to us and gaslights us, and man, this makes perfect sense. I'll just go ahead and say, from my perspective, I'm going to lean toward that's the most likely thing. That's the most likely scenario that's going on. Well, I'm going to go ahead and end the video there. I hope you guys enjoyed these clips. I know I did. Make sure to get down in there in the comments and talk to me and let me know what your thoughts are on all of them. Hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already, and come back and join me tomorrow. I'll be here waiting on you. Have a great, safe day. I will see you tomorrow.